Enlarging your sphere of leadership. Okay? To enlarge your sphere of leadership is you're going to have to enlarge your sphere of relationships. And the fact of the matter is all of us can only sustain so many relationships. All right? We see this with Jesus. He really invested most of his time into 12. And it doesn't mean he didn't have other relationships. He did. There were obviously people coming and going and around, but there were certain priorities. And even with those 12, there were 3 that went with him up on the Mount of Transfiguration, who were with him at Gethsemane, went with him when he raised Jairus' daughter. So they were kind of in even a little bit closer relationship. And so to enlarge your sphere of leadership means to enlarge your relationships. Sometimes that means to deepen the relationships you've got. Peter, James, and John were the 3. John ends up writing the Gospel of John. Peter ends up, of course, being the one who opens the door of the Gospel on the day of Pentecost in the household of Cornelius. And James ends up being the first martyr. Okay? And so these 3 are very powerful testimonies, and so Jesus invested a lot into them that was prepping them for what he had for them. And so the point being is to enlarge your leadership, sometimes you might need to lessen the breadth of your relationships and focus into the depth of relationship that's going to bear more fruit because of what God has for those 3 or those 12. And so that's what we're talking about is relational leadership. And so we want to enlarge our sphere of leadership. That involves our influence, because leadership is influence exercised across the bridge of relationship. Remember that from your Cell Vision book and from me saying it 100 times? But it is. Now, to be an influencer, I'm not talking about someone online. There's influencers online, and you influence by the information, but I'm talking about being an influencer who influences by being in relationship. We're in the room together, okay? We're not just online together. That's important, I think, because Jesus touched people, and that meant he was there with them. And so you're going to enlarge your influence, your bridge of relationships, and that's going to help you to grow your sphere of leadership. And so every one of us has a sphere of leadership. Everyone here does. If you were to take out a piece of paper and write down all the relationships you have, that would be your sphere of influence. That's where your leadership is actually going to be exercised. It's going to be exercised into those relationships. Now, some of those relationships, let me just qualify everything I'm going to say from here on out. People are not projects. People are people. Okay? And so when you talk about how you relate to people, you can end up thinking this is just a project that we're working on. But if I put a list of all the people I know, I could put over on one side a group of them that I just kind of casually know. I'm in contact with, but not regularly. And so I see they're there. And then on this side, I'd have a group that I'm really close with, that I invest a lot in, I've got time with, I hang out with, okay? The people that you just like to be with when you don't have to be anywhere else. And those folks, you got those people. And then you got those in the middle. And where are they in that sequence between just a casual relationship to being someone that you're really invested in, and they're invested in you, and it's developing. Excuse me. And so you know this about your relationships, and so you can't just, though, look at a person and say, well, that person's not really one of my close people, so I'm not going to really spend any time with that person. That makes you a user of people, not someone who develops people. And there's a difference between someone who works with people to help develop them and to grow in relationship versus someone who just sees a person as potential to fulfill whatever they want to achieve. Can I get a cup of coffee? Decaf, please. I know. And so I think that's important, obviously, for all of us to remember, because Jesus had to make priority choices. If he's going to invest more time in the 12, he's got a whole multitude out there who would like to have time with him. And so he had to make some priority choices as to his time and how it was spent. You have priority choices to make on who are you actually investing your time in, what relationships are you developing, because how those relationships develop, that is your sphere of leadership. That's just the way it is in an organic leadership. And I would hope that it's been said so many times and how this church grows and all the above, that we just know that. But it's something I find we have to constantly come back to. Okay, because there's two things that are going to move you off that focus. Every one of you face these two things one way or the other. The first are areas of concern that you have. You have areas of concern about things that are going on that are beyond your sphere of influence. No matter how often I write the president, he doesn't answer me. He's beyond my sphere of influence. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's at least someone out there beyond my sphere of influence. All right? You have concerns. People have concerns for our nation. They have causes. They're concerned for justice, social justice, pro-life. There are concerns that we have. Concerned about our education system. We're concerned about economic justice, fairness. Do we need a socialist versus a capitalist? Is capitalism financially unfair? Is it an inequitable system? People have a lot of concerns. Christians have a lot of concerns. What happens is you have your relationships that really take time for you to invest in, and then you have your concerns that are calling to you. Come over here. Spend your time on protest. Sign a petition. Join the crusade. It's a noble cause. Have fun storming the castle. It pulls to you. I'm not saying it's wrong to be involved in a cause. I would follow the 80-20 rule. I would spend at least 80% of my time and energy and effort in giving myself to the sphere of relationships that God has given to me, and 20% to a concern that is legitimate, a concern that God has put on my heart, a real concern. People are really concerned about things. You can't be concerned about everything. But I'll guarantee you the person who is concerned about it is convinced you ought to be concerned about what they're concerned about. And if you were really a good Christian, you would be concerned about it. And so what happens is you spend up your time being pulled over into your areas of concerns. And churches do this, taking up causes, standing for justice, calling for repentance, just all kinds of things. You know this. All of it can be legitimate. All of it can be good. In fact, most people don't embrace a cause that's bad. They believe it's good, okay? And they want you involved in it because they believe it's good. You have areas of concern. Pray about those things, because what they're going to do is they're going to pull your attention. I would say if there's anything that has taken the focus of the church, and it's happened in this church, but in a broader context, the church, anything that's taken the focus of the church off of disciple making, which is really the influence of relationship, that's moved it off of that, it's an area of concern. Something that is good that has moved you off of what is fruitful. And we end up with Christians who spend their lives promoting, pursuing cause or justice and have not yet borne fruit in making a disciple. And the way you make a disciple is you get close enough to a person that you rub off on them. That's how you actually make a disciple. Jesus invited him into his life. And so you have your relationships that you're investing in, and that may be one or two or three people, but you got all this over here, these big concerns that if you would just get involved in that, you could affect the thousands and the masses of people and everyone in our nation. And if you don't do it, you're going to lose everything. That they forgot, left that part out. That's always there. It's the apocalypse is coming. Okay? It's been coming for a long time. And we'll probably live long enough to not experience the apocalypse. Or the apocalypse will wait long enough for us to not experience it. Anyway, one or the other is going to happen. There's always some doomsday at the end of that. Give yourself to your influence, your sphere of influence. The other thing that will pull your attention away is relations of non-influence. Relationships wouldn't fit in there. So I just said relations of non-influence. To influence someone, they have to be teachable. One of the things that's left out of this brochure is the fact that someone who's involved in a cell group, this is a disciple-making group. To be a disciple, you have to be a learner. Okay? To invest your life into a non-learner is not smart. Jesus said, follow me, and he kept going, and they followed him because they wanted what he had. They were learners. He was leading them. And so to be a disciple, you have to be a learner. And to make a disciple, someone has to want what you've got. Now, we all have relationships where someone really wants what we have, and someone might want what we have, and someday may want what we have. Okay? Some of those relationships are family. I'm not saying jettison those. That would be wrong. Okay? But it's taken my brothers 40 to 50 years to want any interest in what I've got. That's a long time. Come on, speed it up, people. Let's go. But it just are that way, sometimes with family. Okay? But therefore, I haven't made them the priority of my adult life. The priority of my adult life has been to make disciples that glorify Jesus Christ and to keep that relationship, of course, and for it to grow, but I don't let that become the focus of my time. That makes sense? But you have some friends like that. They want what you got, but some of it, but not all. That's okay. Invest what the person's willing to receive and pray for them to want more later. But if you focus just on the relationships that are relationships of non-influence, you'll be investing your life into people who are not receiving what God's given to you. Jesus didn't do that. Jesus invested his life into people that wanted what he had. And so he gave himself to them, and he said, anyone who comes to me, I won't cast out. So he wasn't being exclusive, but he was investing. And he put his life into them, and they then in turn bore fruit of what was in that he put into them. Now, it is into that fruit bearing, the multiplication process, that we enlarge our sphere of leadership, our sphere of influence. This is what Paul talks about. Some verses in 2 Corinthians we'll read in a moment. But you enlarge your leadership by investing in others. I use the word achievers. I like the word fruit bearers better because we're talking about kingdom. But I started with achievers because the apostles were achievers before they were fruit bearers. Peter, James, Andrew, and John were partners in business. They were achieving something. Matthew was a tax collector. He's achieved something. Okay? All of those men were strong. Okay? Jesus didn't start with the down and outers. He started with the up and comers. These guys, they were not just sitting around waiting to be rescued. They were getting on with their life. They were doing things. They were going somewhere. They had business that they were doing. And so he starts with achievers. He starts with people that are moving in a direction, And then he directs them into following him. And then they come along. There were people who were desperate who came to Jesus, and he did minister to them. And he changed their lives, and they became fruit bearers as well. Mary Magdalene is a great example of it. I mean, she came with 7 demons, okay? All right, and so Jesus set her free, and she becomes a follower and a fruit bearer, and the first one to bear witness to the resurrection of Jesus. And so there is that, but it doesn't always start down here. I think too often churches measure their ministry by how far down can we go and who we're going to reach out to. Well, Jesus didn't do that. He started with those who were going somewhere and said, now let's go this way. And so he started with achievers, and he invested his life into them because they were going to take what he had put into them and multiply it, which is what happened. I mean, really, you look at this, 12 people is what Jesus left with a handful of others, and it changed the world. That's amazing when you think about that, but that's the principle of multiplication. Now, Paul, I believe, does the same thing, and there's these verses in 2 Corinthians 10 where he talks about his sphere. And it's really a great set of verses. We, however, will not boast beyond measure, but within the limits of the sphere which God appointed us, a sphere which especially includes you. We'll just stop there. Paul isn't getting sidetracked into causes and other people's ministries. He's staying focused on what God gave him. At one point, when he wrote to the Romans, he said, I'm not even building on someone else's foundation. If you've heard the gospel from someone else, that's great. Here, let me add to that. And by the way, I'm moving on to another location. He wasn't trying to collect the fruit of someone else. He's focused. This guy is really focused on what God has called him to do. And he knows it's a sphere that God has given to him. And then in verse 14, he says, we're not overextending ourselves as though our authority did not extend to you. For it was to you that we came with the gospel of Christ. He's saying to the Corinthians, listen, we were there first. We came to you with the gospel. We're not overextending ourselves now by speaking to you. We're back to relationship, aren't we? You're back to organic authority is what you're back to. Now, verse 15, not boasting of things beyond measure, that is in other men's labors, but having hope that as your faith is increased, we shall be greatly enlarged by you in our sphere. Paul, like everyone else, could only sustain so many relationships. And so he says, we're invested in you, Corinthians. Our sphere has reached to you now. We want to be enlarged in our sphere by you. Paul wants them to enlarge him, his sphere. Okay? And how's that going to happen? By them being fruitful. Now let's put this into our situation. Amos is enlarged our sphere. We're down by Tanzania. We're with the Maasai now. We have invested in Amos. Now, we invested in Amos not just because they needed a well, but because we had relationship with Amos, but not just because we had relationship with Amos, because we could have picked a number of others that we have relationship with there, and some living in villages that needed wells as well, but because Amos is a lead man in that region. We are connected to Amos, and where he goes, he is enlarging our sphere. We're investing in him. That's really what that's all about. And digging that well increased his influence in the eyes of that community, and it brought water to those churches up in the hills that come down on motorcycles to get buckets of water to go back up, okay? And it has enlarged him in his sphere, and thereby he's enlarging us. You see how this works? Now it's George. There was a spiritual connection that happened with George here. I hope you sensed that. That it was more than simply Oh, he's a good guy. He's really interesting. He's fun, loving. He's great to be around, and he's leading the school. It's really nice. I love it. There was a spiritual connection that happened. The body is fitly joined together by the Spirit. And when you have that kind of joining, it is miraculous, and it occurs in a moment. You feel close enough to that guy as though you've known him for years. Well, yeah, it's the same spirit as you. That's you have. Now we're connected to George. I've known George, but you haven't known George. We're connected to George. He's going to enlarge our sphere in the school there. So this is how it works. You find someone who's a fruit bearer, and you get connected to that person, and then through them they're extending the sphere that you have. Well, you are being a blessing to them. That's what Paul's saying. When he says, I want to be extended by you, he's not saying, listen, I want to go on a trip. Could you all just give me some money so I'm going to take this ministry and I'm going to go out there and you're my platform. I've seen ministers treat their congregation like it's a platform for their ministry. It's disgusting. Okay? What it is an extension of a sphere. It's together you're in the kingdom. And if together we're in the kingdom and relationally we are connected together by the Spirit of God, then when I am supporting you, you're enlarging my sphere. You see this? Okay, every one of you who's a cell leader, thank you. You're enlarging my sphere. I appreciate that. You are. And that is a double-way blessing, isn't it? It goes both ways. That's how the kingdom works. And you enlarge your sphere that way. But if you get sidetracked into the entanglements of the world, relationships that are not fruit-bearing, things that are just a distraction of time with causes and whatnot, you're going to miss those opportunities because you only have so much time. You have limitations, and you accept that. You go, where can my time, my resources be invested the most into the people and relationships that I've got, while at the same time I'm open to something out here being brought into that sphere of influence. Does that make sense? This is what Paul did. Now, it's believed that Paul ended up going to Spain, actually, before he ended up being taken prisoner. The New Testament doesn't tell us all those details. That would be just in church history. So here's 3 questions for you. Who is fruit-bearing inside your sphere of relationships, and what are you doing to help them? Don't ask who needs me the most. They don't need you the most. Okay, that's why they're already fruit-bearing. Ask yourself, who in your sphere is fruit-bearing? What's that relationship? And then how can you invest in them to help them become more fruit-bearing? 2, what is pulling you out of your sphere of influence? What are you doing to curtail it? If there's anything that hinders us as a church, is we are a bunch of achievers who are overachieving. We're distracted too much and not focused enough on disciple making. We have to keep reminding ourselves, and that's a good thing to remind us, but nevertheless, we can all do so many things. And that's just a challenge then, to keep a person who can do so many things focused on doing the one thing that's the most important thing that Jesus gave us to do. Go therefore and make disciples. That's the one thing. There's all kinds of other good things you can do. You'd be amazed, by the way, of the number of things that I've been told I could do. Okay? I just want you to know that. I could be a very popular podcaster. Okay, I could be I really should be writing a blog so that everybody internationally can read my thoughts. I'm trying to read my thoughts first, so. But I could do that. I could do that. I should teach in a school. I've been told that one. You should teach in a school. You need to teach in a school. You'd be amazed how many people have ideas of what I could do. But if that's not the sphere God's called me to, what's the point of it? That's not where you're going to bear fruit. There's people who will come and give you, that have ideas for how you and what you can do. What's pulling you out of your sphere? There are all kinds of good influences that want to pull you out of your sphere. You need to know what God has for you. Paul knew what he was called to do. He knew himself. He wasn't distracted by what everyone else thought he should be doing. He stayed on mission. 3, how are you growing to increase your influence inside your sphere? Are you getting better at what you do? If you're not getting better, then you're not increasing your influence inside your sphere. Bill Bogue, we prayed for Bill. You may not be aware of this, but Bill and Martha Bogue were in the very first regular Bible study that I taught. It's at the old Wars Park building over here. It was before the new sanctuary was built, and before any of you even know about the thing. There was a classroom in the back. We had the carpet of many colors. It was like a Joseph's coat. Okay, it was shag too. I just want to say it was shag. And they were all in different, there were carpet squares, and that was our youth room. And I had a Thursday night Bible study there that Bill and Martha Bogue came to every Thursday night. I think I was 21. So I've known them that long. Okay. I know more now than I did then. That increases my value to my sphere. That's why you grow in what God has given to you. I didn't try to change gifting. See, you don't get to make that decision. That decision's made for you. What you do is you get to be a steward of what's given to you. And in being a steward of what's given to you, you enlarge your influence inside your sphere. And so you grow in it. What has God given to you? What are you doing to increase your influence in your sphere? If you are writing music, what are you doing to become a better music writer? I mean, what are you doing to increase your influence? If you're leading, what are you doing to be a better leader? If you're helping people with finances, what are you doing to help people better with their finances? Could God give you the wisdom and get people out of a poverty mentality? It would be very helpful, you know. What are you doing to learn those things, to help people grow? See, sometimes I think people are called to do something and gifted to do it, but then they want to do something else. And therefore they don't really take time to develop what they are gifted to do. And you are to grow and increase your influence within your sphere. It's going to enlarge right there. The grass is always greener. Okay? And what's the phrase? Oh, on the other side of the fence, I think it's the phrase. Irma Bombeck, who was a comedian in the 1980s, said the grass is always greener over the septic tank. Okay? You might be amazed the number of guys I could tell you that started out, well, Linda and I were in ministry with 30 years ago, 40 years ago, who went elsewhere doing things, this, that. They were looking for the grass is greener, and they ended up over a septic tank. Most of them aren't in ministry now. And when they look back, there wasn't really a lot of fruit and all that running around and looking for that better opportunity. All right? You make the better opportunity by becoming a better you. If there's things about your cell group that you're not happy about, they've been in that group long enough for you to rub off on them, then maybe that's a mirror of you. And you ought to ask, what do I need to change? If I change, everyone following me will change. If I don't change, then I can complain about everyone following me not doing what they ought to do, and I can look for another place to grow, but it's just going to be over a septic tank. You become a better you, and you will find that the people around you change. It just works that way. It's the nature of discipleship and organic relationships. George Wafula makes you a better you, doesn't he? He's life-giving, isn't he? He's just like hanging with the guy. Okay? I want to be like George when I grow up. I mean, my goodness. See, he makes you a better you by him being a better George. The same is true of you. It's how it works. It's organic, it's relational, but it's growing inside a sphere. And that's what leadership really does. And Paul was that way. Wouldn't you love to have just spent the day with Paul the Apostle? I mean, just to hang out with him. See, you would have been transformed just by being with him. There are people who do that. We'd like to be those kind of people. And maybe on our better days we are once in a while, okay? But maybe we can have more better days and become more like that, and that will enlarge our influence. Our sphere will make more disciples. God is bringing people, okay, bringing them to what? To us. Not to Christ the King, church, the worshiping, the singing, the preaching, the meeting, but to us, because all those things are an extension of us. And if those people coming in are going to grow, we need to enlarge our sphere to receive them in and become the people that they want to become more like, as we bring life to them, just as being with George brings life to us. It's not really that complicated. It's just not fast. That's the only problem with this. It's not fast. And I think people want fast. They want it quick. But community and relationships are not that way. George shared with Linda and I that he loved being here. He loved being in the church. He said, I felt more community here than any church. That he's been traveling anywhere. It's not a competition, but I'm glad he felt at home. And that he felt the community that's here. He is a relational guy. And so there's a psalm that says, deep calls to deep, but the noise of the water spouts. Don't have a clue what that means. Okay? But there's something in a person that calls to another person in the depths of the person. That may be what it means. I don't know. All right? For the time being, we'll call it that. All right? And there's something that answers back and forth. Find the people who answer and invest in them. Don't rule the others out. Make room for them as they go along. But focus on the ones that you're investing in. And if it's 2 or 3, look what Jesus did with Peter, James, and John. That's good. And invest in them. That will enlarge your fruit more than all the effort of a cause, however noble it is. The church is called to make disciples. It's a lifelong process. Amen? Amen.